This is your Swapnil Bhartiya, and welcome to another episode of TFiR Let's Talk. And today we have with us Prashanth Nanjundappa, VP of Product Management at Progress. Prashanth, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Swapnil, thanks for having me on the show as well. It's exciting to talk to you, and I have seen some of your episodes, and the audience have. I think the many events that come and are similar to many of our customers and our community members also dig into. So excited to talk to you and your audience.
Yeah, I was also looking forward to this discussion today because of all the events, everything. There was some delay, but I'm happy to finally have you on the show. Before we get started, because a lot of things happen, Progress, acquired Chef, and I just want to go to give our viewers a bit of a background as well. Talk, how the ecosystem has evolved, because when we talk about security in today's world, it's different than what it was a few years ago. So let's start with some basics there.
Sure. And you mentioned Progress and you mentioned Chef, so let me start with that, and then I'll talk a little bit about Chef products and DevOps and DevSecOps and the transition into that. I'm with Progress for about 2.5 years now, and Progress is a 40-year-old company, and we are listed in NASDAQ for more than 30 years. And most of our products are targeted towards developer ecosystem. And many of our customers use our products as platform to build enterprise products, which consumers or businesses use. And we acquired Chef about a year and a half ago. Chef has been a DevOps leader in DevOps domain, and Chef started this whole journey of infrastructure as code. And we have 3 or 4 different broad products in our product portfolio. All of them are code first. And we started our journey, Chef started our journey in automating infrastructure, and infrastructure as code was one of the key elements there. And that was the foundational element of the DevOps movement. While there are so many things that come under DevOps, one of the key element is automating your infrastructure deployment and management of that infrastructure. And that's where Chef infrastructure management comes in. And over the 12, 13 years of Chef's movement or Chef's evolution, Chef's product portfolio has also kind of extended to different parts of this ecosystem. Other than infrastructure as code, we also help organizations maintain continuous compliance. Continuous compliance is one of the key elements in both security and compliance domain, where it's not just important to have your automation around deploying your infrastructure and managing their configurations, but you also need to shift left your risk around compliance and security. So that's where Chef compliance comes in. And we also have app delivery, which is based on Habitat, which helps packaging and deploying applications in a complex ecosystem. And altogether, we help our customers accelerate their DevOps journey. And with continuous focus on our customer base and their needs, we have been investing a lot of late on making our products easy to use, and also to make sure our products address the cloud adoption journey. As we see many of our customers, you have a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud strategy. They just they need us, and they have additional needs that are required to automate both compliance and infrastructure aspects of their cloud infrastructure, and that's where we are investing of late, and we will continue investing in that space.
Perfect. Not only thanks for sharing the kind of history of Progress. It's a contrast also when you look at Progress versus Chef, different companies born in different eras, which also set a stage for better understanding if we just look at, cloud security, how it has evolved over time. In the early days, security used to be someone else's problem, as you talked about, led to the whole DevSecOps movement as well. Now things are shifting left. But how much do you see is still in the preaching stage versus actual practicing. When we go to all these events which are coming back, we do hear a lot about security. Last year, even the Biden administration, they came out about software supply chain security. So there is a lot of movement going on there, which actually makes things easier for you folks, because you don't have to do the whole education part around security. But how much you're seeing in practice, which would also explain when we talk about the whole CSPM platform there.
I'll answer that in two buckets, Swapnil, because this is there are patterns, and these patterns are emerging slightly differently in these two buckets. One bucket I will take is private cloud or hybrid cloud, the traditional infrastructure, private cloud infrastructure, or on-premise, as we said, right? Or as we understand. This is a fairly mature system. Uh, and why I say mature is there are standard practices put in place, and most of the DevOps evolution happened on that side. And there are practices, automation, as well as tools that have matured and well understood, which is not just required for, let's say, when a developer wants to start a new application or start a new microservice or enhance their existing application, they will start with asking for infrastructure. And this kind of goes through a streamlined process where they ask an IT team or a centralized team, if not a dedicated IT team. And these teams have, there is a high level of maturity of also plugging in compliance and security in that process. What I mean by that is when they provide an infrastructure for any such asks, there is a high level of understanding of the security and compliance needs. So most of these organizations have adopted tools like Chef, compliance, or Chef Infra, or even Terraform, and many other security tools to not just provide them the infrastructure that they need, but also to provide them in a state where all the policies are already enforced. This happens because this is for this there is a physical approval, or there is approval process, and there is a capacity planning that happens at an organization level for them to procure that hardware. Let's shift our attention to the second part, which is the cloud native applications. Right here, things have flipped a lot. This is a very fast paced evolution and changes. And here, the autonomy or the decision power is not in the centralized organization, but it is completely decentralized. Right, so that developers have access to AWS console, Azure console, or GCP control panel, and they go click and buy services. Right, they don't even know that they are buying. They go and select services and they start using it. And application developers or development team are making the architectural decisions, which are not necessarily consulted from security team or any other teams. Right. So here, the adoption of security is still afterthought to a great extent, and it is yet to mature. Uh, the good news is people understand security. Like you rightly said, we don't have to go and educate a lot of enterprises, even startups. This is it's unfortunate that so many exploitations are happening, but because of that, the awareness is also increasing. Consequently, there is a demand to have tools and processes in place so that they don't have the same fate as many other companies have had, either because of misconfiguration or lack of compliance, or leaving some small backdoor open, which costed them millions of dollars.
It's more like everybody wants security, but you have to do something about it too. I sometimes compare it with the automobile analogy, where brakes or airbags not an afterthought. You'll buy a car and then later on you'll get them installed. They come pre-installed when you buy a new vehicle. So do you also see the trends where once again security is kind of becoming a default before the software actually hits GA? Or do you still see that it's still I mean, it's not about you still see, but don't you think that is the ideal word?
It is, but and I will take the security and divide it into two parts, right? The compliance and the core security. The compliance is fortunately not an afterthought, although in many ways it is afterthought from a developer's perspective. But if an organization, startup even, has created a product and they want to go sell it to a large enterprise, they ask for certifications. Right? They want SOC 2, they want PCI DSS if they are in financial domain. If they are in healthcare, they want HIPAA certification. And there are so many other things that come up. So before they hit GA or before they scale the product, because of the business needs, they are asked to provide compliance certifications. Right? And when they go for the certifications, the organizations that demand for certifications, they don't care if they are on-prem or cloud. They want for all the infrastructure that is being used to provide this service for them. Consequently, the cloud compliance and even Kubernetes and container compliance is something that is made conscious. There is a conscious effort towards that. However, the security is still an afterthought in especially fast-paced new organizations. Traditional organizations are a little different. Their security team kind of comes in the last part of the development and things come to halt. That's a different problem. But the security part is, I think there is lot of maturity to happen in the core security aspect in terms of bringing that shift left, and not making it an afterthought.
I've been hearing a lot about compliance and security, but if I'm not wrong, these could be seen as two different things. Compliance in many cases can be just seen as a check box. You checked all the boxes, but security is much more in depth. So it's like compliance. When you have checked, you have done all of those things. That's why you're compliant. That compliance should not be the starting point. And in many industries, as you mentioned, also regulatory industry, you do have to have those compliance in place. So can you also draw a distinction between these two things, because one does not equate with the other?
For sure. I think you said you kind of called out one of the biggest difference. Right? Compliance is seen as a checkbox, and to a great extent, if it is executed as a checkbox, then you don't accomplish the security aspect at all. And in many organizations pursue it in the same way. Compliance is something essential for them to stay operating in a specific business or a specific region. Right? So it becomes a necessity. To what extent they follow it seriously is dependent on the organization. Whereas security is essential if you want to protect your intellectual property. It is essential for if you want to protect your data, if you want to protect your customers, right? And if you want to protect your core ISP, whatever your product is actually providing. So, but there is a common thread that ties these things. Fortunately, that is in most organizations, the governance body for both compliance and security is same, right? It comes under CISO, or there is a security team which is a sub part of CIO. So they come together and they look for tools or technologies which help them accomplish both security and compliance. But you're spot on, and there is no doubt about saying that compliance is seen as that checkbox. And a lot of companies do just that because they want that first few dollars come in as revenue, and security becomes really an afterthought when problems arise, or if there is an expert in the house and they bring this up.
Let's just focus on compliance and also talk about policy as code, because that's where we are also seeing a lot of things are moving, which makes it easier. You get a framework there. So let's talk about what you folks are doing to help them.
So before I get into the security and compliance for cloud and Kubernetes, let me talk a little bit about policy as code, which I think is an important concept, and it is an evolving concept. So at a high level, if you are a business owner or if you are running an organization, you devise many policies, right? And many of these policies are related to people, related to how you manage your physical assets. But when it comes to your software, there also you have, or the software that you build, there also you have a lot of policies. And these policies could be at infrastructure level. That is what kind of hardware you want to use, right? And which region, which cloud provider you want to host on. And then it could be on compliance. Do you want to follow STIG, CIS, and any other? Do you want to follow any of those things, or do you want to follow SOC 2 or PCI DSS? Right? And then the security aspects comes. Who in the organization should have access to the infrastructure? What is the level of access they should have? If you are having storage units, what level of encryption it should have? And then if you have, let's say, private cloud and public cloud, who should have access to private cloud? Who should have access to public cloud? What services should be used in public cloud? What services should be used in private cloud? For example, healthcare company do not want to use any service on AWS or Azure which is not HIPAA certified. Right? They don't even want their developers to have access to those services without their conscience. So they want to enforce such policies, or they want to enforce policies for cost optimization that on development clusters I should not run on those devices on weak. Right? So policies are across the board, and they cut across infrastructure, compliance, and security. Right? And what we have been working, what we started our journey was infrastructure as code, and gradually we moved at. We had another product which was compliance as code, which is powered by Spec, and these were working kind of made to work together. But we realized that if we bring these two together, we can also expand this aspect of policy as code and bring in this aspect of policy as code so that organizations can codify infrastructure policies, compliance policies, and security policy. So this is I think where the organizations are going towards. And if you want to automate and if you want to bring security, DevOps, and compliance team together, code is that common language. And if you can help codify that, and if you can help that code to be managed consistently across the tool, policy as code becomes important. Right? So in that context, we looked at, we are able to, we are seeing some trends on, we definitely saw some trends on the private cloud and hybrid cloud. But we, as you rightly said, when it comes to cloud native, that is AWS, Azure, GCP, Ali Cloud, any of these things, there are so many services that are there. It is almost impossible to track for a CISO or anyone to track those things, let alone identify where the problem is. Right? And similarly, Kubernetes is another beast. It has so many advantages, but like you said, managing that and making sure that it is secure and compliant is another challenge altogether. And this boils down to two or three different reasons. One, like you rightly said, skill. Right? It's hard to find the people who understand security. That is a different beast, security and compliance, and who also understand the security and compliance aspect of all these heterogeneous services that an organization using. Right? And second is the fast-paced evolution of these services that are coming up. And third is the time to value. If you buy a product, if you have multiple products, how fast can you integrate them? How fast can you get started? And I think there are problems in three dimensions, and that's where we are looking at and how we can simplify that. Our recent launch is taking all the advantage that we had of policy as code for private cloud and hybrid cloud to make it available for public cloud, so that multi-clouds can be secured and stay made compliant in the same way organizations are used to making the public hybrid cloud compliant and secure, and also provide similar level of compliance and security capabilities for Kubernetes. So for this, and to reduce the time to market, time to value, we have also codified a lot of industry standard compliance and security policies and made it available out of the box. For example, we have about 300 odd CIS or such premium content which will cover across CIS, STIG, and best practices, which is available for you out of the box. This helps addresses that skill gap as well as the time to value. And then people who are used to the Chef tool chain, they can seamlessly migrate to managing public cloud as well as Kubernetes and containers for compliance and security.
Excellent. And since you talked about the launch of, Progress Chef, public cloud security, that was, I think, in May. Since you mentioned it, let's also talk about, what are some of the, once again, let's look at the problem area that you're trying to address and solve. What features it brings to the users.
Yeah, so I think at a high level, I would categorize in cloud and container and Kubernetes, these two buckets. And when it comes to cloud, there are again two big problems. One is the compliance itself. If they want to adhere to some of the compliance standards, how can they accomplish that? And second is the security. And in that, there is a very, very significant bucket of misconfiguration. And so most of the times, the vulnerabilities happen because you have misconfigured something. And a very classic case and a simple case to understand is if there is an S3 bucket and if it is not encrypted, you are bound to get exploited. Right? So this is a very simple misconfiguration. So in the recent release, we have helped address both of these aspects. The compliance by providing a lot of CIS and STIG benchmarks and also AWS and a few other recommended benchmarks for compliance. And for misconfigurations, again, we have identified a whole lot of most common problems, and there are some best practices that are recommended by industry. We have codified that and provided. In addition to that, it is powered by Inspect, through which you can write human readable policy code. You can take whatever is available out of the box and you can create your own both compliance and security policy as per your organization needs in a very, very easy and seamless manner. And similar coverage is available for Kubernetes and container as well, which is again few resources out of the box and few they can build out based on their organization policies.
Can you talk about the importance of these two things, policy as code and also compliance, which should be seen more or less like, you have done everything and then you're checking a box, so that when folks look at improving their security posture, they look at them as tools, that, hey, this is the final stage of you have done everything right.
So let me give an answer to that in two different perspectives. One, someone who is at a business level, right, who wants to see faster time to market. For them, if they don't have these check boxes, even let's assume if it is checkbox, right, for the argument's sake, if these checkboxes are not really understood, validated earlier in the development cycle, if they don't automate this process because things are constantly changing, then when it is about to hit the market, that is when they are going to have a big, big blocker, right? And these are not days and weeks; these tend to become months or quarters even. Right? So, from a business perspective, I think it is important to invest in automation of these compliance early on in your product development lifecycle, so that you don't have to wait for a fully ready product to hit the market, and that is a huge loss. Right? Opportunity cost is huge there, and competitors can creep in. And second perspective is from a developer or a technologist perspective, right? So I think the security team is always seen as a stopper or as someone who does not understand, who does not empathize with developers. But if we start understanding their perspective, if we are aware of why security exists, why compliance exists, then we can start bringing these practices early on. And all it needs is actually having a dialogue early on in the cycle and getting to know which service is good. For example, there might be a bleeding edge technology which is not a good service to include, or there could be a outdated, not supported service which has known vulnerabilities which we should not include. So these are some basics. We exclude those things and also have checks in place so that we validate such misconfigurations or identifying vulnerable products or identifying products that are not to be used. Then you save a lot of yours and your team's effort. So in both perspectives, I think automating this and bringing it early in the cycle is very, very important. And that's why adopting a policy of code methodology and tools that enable them is going to be beneficial for everyone within the organization.
Prashanth, thank you so much for taking time out today and not only talk about the work that you folks are doing there, Chef and Progress, but also in general, how to help organizations improve their security posture of course, through policy as code, and also share some tips also there how they should do it, right? So thanks for sharing all those insights as well, and I would love to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Thanks again for having me on the show, and it was really enjoying conversation. I hope these insights are useful for some of your audience, and like you said, I'll be happy to engage with you and your audience in future as well.